Hi, everybody, and welcome to the video on integration and alignment within a PBIS framework. I'm Christine Downs, and I'm a trainer for any PBIS. And this presentation, as always, was developed with the support of the NPBIS network. So today's agenda will be to focus on integrating and aligning different initiatives within PBIS. And your tasks will be to revisit and complete the Working Smarter matrix and to begin to work on a draft of the integration worksheet that we'll review today. We know every year schools are asked to do more and more, and it seems just like when you're implementing something near fidelity, it's really starting to work. We throw that one out and another one gets thrown in. And frankly, you probably think they all seem so similar. Why can't we just stick with one? And you have a good point. And we're not saying all these different initiatives aren't important. They are. But how do you integrate them all together? That's the conundrum, right? We do know PBIS has some explicit practices like teaching and reinforcing behaviors, right? But mostly it's an implementation framework that can be used to align these different initiatives. So you can just articulate a simplified message to all of your stakeholders, school committees and families and the community, right? Just an overall improvement strategy rather than this sort of series of disjointed practices that never really get full attention. The PBIS or MTSS approach, right? It's proactive and it focuses on tiered intervention, right? Like this. So whatever practices and interventions you bring in can typically fit into one of the tiers, and you can add new research and new strategies to support students at different tiers. Don't need to throw one out and start a whole new one. So there are 5 steps when thinking about aligning initiatives, and you'll be able to download this technical guide for alignment off of the platform. But step 1 is defining the valued outcomes, like a positive school culture. Step 2 is listing out your related initiatives. So you've got PBIS, maybe you have SEL, a mental health initiative, bully prevention, whatever you've got. Then you're going to identify the core features of each intervention. And you're going to analyze and make decisions for how we're going to align them. How do the different core features align? Can we combine PD events, things like that? And then you're going to plan for that effective alignment, like combining teams or combining outcome measures. We only need to look at the data one time. And we'll go through each of these. So remember we did this activity in year 1, the Working Smarter matrix? Well, this helps us begin that quest to look for where interventions and teams overlap and initiatives, right? You can see right away, we've listed our initiatives here, and we can see right away lots of places where they overlap. They overlap in their purpose, which is pretty much to improve behavior, which is also probably part of goal 3 on their school improvement plan. Their outcomes, lots of them discuss fewer office referrals, right? Many of them are related to all students, right? And that's tier 1. So all these initiatives are about tier 1 for every student. And then you even have lots of the same staff on these teams, which becomes really a time drain for these people because they have so many meetings, to schedule and attend, but it's the same people. So can't we combine them and have a more efficient, maybe a little bit longer meeting, right? We should be combining these efforts where we can. So here's an example of the alignment activity that you're going to be working on for next month. We can see that this one aligns PBIS with SEL and also trauma-informed practices. And this worksheet is going to help us do the alignment of the core system features for each initiative. So let's take a closer look. It's top of the worksheet. So we start by analyzing. So this is a lot like that Working Smarter worksheet, but now we're getting into the details of the initiatives, right? We list again their student outcomes. What are we looking to achieve? Maybe we have other outcomes. Maybe it's about staff as well. But what are those outcomes and where do they overlap, right? Next, and so those outcomes. Next, we're going to look at the practices and see where they overlap. Right? You have a vision statement here on all three of them. Well, we don't need 3 vision statements, right? We need one all-inclusive statement that talks about a positive climate and supporting students and not re-traumatizing them and giving them the skills they need, both social, emotional, and behavioral, right? We have clear expectations and lessons and intervention strategies. There's lots of places where these align. So next, you're going to consider systems and data. You want to list the teams that exist, right? Maybe you go back to the Working Smarter and think, where can we combine teams? Also think about staff professional development, right? We want to use our time very wisely and think about where we can integrate even in our training of staff. Because again, that's a lot of time. So while we're doing PD, we really want staff to understand that the core concepts of these initiatives are already integrated into the student lesson plans. And when they go to teach these lesson plans and then they prompt their students to use the new skills, staff are actually implementing multiple initiatives at once. They're doing all 3. Right? So you have to help them understand that, and that will really improve your buy-in from staff. Then we come to the fidelity and the data. Fidelity measures whether the adults are doing what they're supposed to do. PBIS does have some tools, but you might have to create some surveys for your other ones, make sure the adults are doing their part. And then we look at the office referrals and nurses visits and student climate surveys for our impact or our student outcome data. And again, there's lots of overlapping here. So we only have to grab that data one time and analyze it. We don't have to do that 3 times. We want to be saving time and working efficiently. For lots of schools who will be returning to in-person learning, supporting students who have experienced high levels of stress and anxiety has become a priority for these schools. And you can see here that the team can develop strategies and skills and then just incorporate them into their social curriculum, right? Their teaching curriculum. And as you can see here, we've added some things to lunch, like invite those sitting alone to join in, have a plan, choose a quiet or social lunch, and use my breathing techniques and listen to my signals when I start to get anxious, right? The matrix, right, is the delivery system. So it's just a matter of teaching these skills to the students and starting to use this common language to teach and acknowledge and pre-correct. Right? So combining it here allows the staff to use that same approach that they've been using for walking in the hallway. But now we're sort of expanding it to more social emotional skills. Right? Then what you're going to do is you're just going to continue across the core features at your kickoffs and booster events through your direct teaching to students, embedded into your academic curriculum if possible, and then through all visibility avenues like posters and displays and newsletters and announcements and things like that. Right, as we looked in that sample, things like trauma-informed practices and restorative justice practices, really seamlessly integrate with PBIS. And I've just pulled out where they overlap with tier 1, but you can look at the crosswalks for both of these for all 3 tiers, right? And some people say like, well, do we need to do all of these things? Maybe, maybe not. You want to look at your data and see what it indicates. Do you have a high number of students who've experienced trauma? Then that's a really important thing to address. Right? Has your district invested in restorative justice practices that you want to incorporate? Right? Have you done a survey and noticed that bullying is on the rise and you want to pull in some anti-bullying practices? So you want to work with what's going on in your building that you've identified either as a district priority or your data is telling you this is what we need to add to our list of initiatives. Right? And again, PBIS and social emotional learning can be fully integrated, right? When we say things like be safe, yes, we're talking about keeping your hands and feet to yourself, but we're also talking about telling an adult when you might be worried about a friend, or being respectful also means making sure everybody gets a turn, right? And checking in with my own feelings during the day, right? So we can just kind of pull those things in. So sometimes it's helpful rather than having a curriculum for social emotional learning that is, here's what we're going to do. There's 20 weeks of curriculum. We're just going to go week 1, week 2, week 2, 3, 4, 5. That might be fine, but you might look at your data and say, wow, kids are missing these skills now. We don't want to wait till December or January to teach them some skills because our data is showing there's a problem. So one way you can look at it is sort of to reverse engineer it. Right. So if we look at what kids are doing, if they're really failing to comply with directions in a timely manner, we can say to ourselves, well, that's linked to our responsible expectation, right? And what we really want students to do is to cooperate in a timely fashion with instructions and directions. Okay, so what skills might they need? Well, lots of times kids don't understand what you've said, but they're nervous to ask a question like, I don't understand, or I wasn't paying attention. Can you say that again? So they don't ask for help. So we need to teach that skill. Just teaching active listening skills, right? Tracking the speaker, leaning forward, listening, right? Nodding when you understand, asking when you don't. What is active listening? Maybe we teach them how to paraphrase. So when we give them a direction, we can say, okay, so Eric, what did you just hear me say? What do I need everybody to do? Right? And having kids paraphrase. So these are some of the skills that you can say, hey, let's front load with some of these skills because here is where we're seeing our problem. Right? So these are the guidelines for effective alignment. You want to organize at an organizational level if possible. So the person who has sort of the authority is overseeing several or all of them. You want to align your outcomes and how you're going to measure them. You're going to resolve any logic model conflicts. So what that means is you may have one initiative that says, hey, we're going to use tangible reinforcers, and another one that says, we like just verbal reinforcers. So you may have to come together with your team and come up with a collaborative, workable protocol or solution. And then finally, how to align your professional development so that you're efficiently using those minutes. Okay, so over the next few weeks, you're going to work to complete the integration and alignment activity, and that can be found on the platform. You want to think about which initiatives you have in your building and your district that need to be aligned, what resources you might need to address that alignment, we also need you to revisit that Working Smarter matrix and resubmit that, aligning your teams where necessary. So thank you for watching this video. If you want further information, you can read the technical guide for aligning programs on our platform or pbis.org and watch the video on PBIS and social emotional learnings. Thank you for taking the time. And then as always, reach out to your trainer if you need any more support or you have any questions.